Welcome. The next few minutes we will be going through a installation demonstration of processes and techniques of the Haworth Composed panel system. This is broken up into 10 segments. Please feel free to refer back to segments as needed. We will be covering panel features, assembly of panel frames, glass panel assembly, stack frames, electrical, panel trim, tile installation, raceway covers, work surfaces and support methods, and storage components. This is a typical composed panel frame. This is how it would ship from the factory. A few things that we've done differently I would like to point out is the attached top trim. Top trim is no longer put on in the field. It will come from the factory put on, which should save some installation time and also minimize a lot of the cartoning that's involved with this panel system. It is a 3-inch wide panel system once it is finished and dressed up with the tiles. The frame itself is about 2 inches before the exterior tiles are put on. Some other features: it is a welded steel frame panel, so it would ship like this. Aligner light blocks already in place from the factory, so when the tiles and things go on, gaps between them, no light will leak through there due to the light blocks. They are set up in 8-inch increments, so if you need to move these, depending on where your tiles end up, it is a force fit, and this can be moved, and it's pre-slotted every 8 inches, so it can be done without the use of any mechanical fasteners. Some other features here: we've got the power on the bottom. That is the typical Haworth 3-circuit power. We also offer it with 6-circuit at the base. It is factory installed and does come with a flex connector to allow you to bring the power and everything in it to the next powered panel. We also offer it at Beltline. This one doesn't have it, but if Beltline powered is ordered, it does come factory installed. Again, to minimize cartoning, to minimize installation of putting the power in where needed. The other options are you can field put it in below the work surface or above a work surface at standing height. Those two applications will be field installed power, but the base and the Beltline will be factory installed. Some other features we have here: we have a metal pan at the bottom to house our raceway cover and capture all of our cables and power at the bottom. We also have our typical panel glide at the bottom. It can be adjusted with a 1/4-inch wrench from the top and has a range of a 2.5-inch range from the factory setting to minimize some of your issues with unlevel floors and things like that. What I would like to point out is the metal top trim. We have used metal on all of our top trim, whether it's a steel product or an aluminum, but it's a metal base for better consistency in painting and also for the environment. What we want to do is minimize damage and scratching to this. So we will have a cardboard cap on this with a sticker saying "Please do not remove prior to installation." What that means is, please do not remove prior to installation. These will come on a skid like our typical panels. We would like you to keep that on during the staging process so it's not a metal-to-metal situation on panel carts leaning against walls to minimize some of the scratches and touch-up work that would need to be done. So keep that in mind. Keep these protected. You will have an option to order a panel frame without a top trim. Why would we do that? It is very common to see, for a cleaner look, 2 panels or 3 panels or 4 panels combined with a single top trim over that. Obviously, we cannot ship it that way, so then we would ship the frame without the top trim. A longer one would be shipped to be field installed. So there are some options here that you don't have with some of our other panel systems, including raceway covers. When we get to that section where we'll install the raceway covers, you will see an option to remove the cover and actually go with a tile to the ground to give a different look. All done with the same panel frame. You're not going to have to switch frames to do any of these different looks. It's all done with the same standard panel frame. Heights on the panel frames we have here, it is set up in 8-inch increments. We start with a 34-inch and go up 42 and go up in 8-inch increments all the way to a 74-inch tall frame. What does that mean? That is our tallest frame. There are no access control or doors with the system. There is a slider door available with the system. This is not meant to go to the floor to ceiling with some other products. This is meant to work with another system we have, which is enclosed, which will capture all the floor to ceiling applications and door applications. So keep in mind, these are my heights. These are my widths, 18 all the way through 60 on fabric. What I'm not showing here is we also offer this in glass frames. Again, 8-inch increments. The only thing you can do differently with a glass is the glass will not go all the way to the floor. The glass will always have a raceway cover due to we do not want the glass going to the bottom for damage and things like that. Installation of the panel frames. You're typically going to start at a 2-way, 3-way, or 4-way, like with any panel system. What we're going to use to connect the composed panel frames together is a standard carriage bolt. Yes, this will come in the hardware box. It is shipped with a panel frame whenever you order a panel frame, but it is an off-the-shelf 1/4x20 bolt in case you lose some down the line. The panel connection, we'll use this and this only. When you're going to make an intersection, a 2, 3, or 4-way, we will use these universal corner blocks. We use them at the top, bottom, and the center, and we're referring to the chart over here. This is our panel heights along with those corner blocks and the orientation of where those would go. Those are also in the panel installation instructions, so please follow them to use the appropriate amount so you don't run short at the end by using too many. It is universal. It does have spacers on the side, so we will use this for all applications, as you can see. What we also ship with the panel frame is an alignment pin. This is not factory installed because it does stick out, protrude from the panel, so those will ship in the hardware box. The first thing the installer will do is to take the pin, put it in the top hole only. We're not going to put it in every hole on the panel frame, but top only to keep us vertically aligned from panel to panel. That will turn in with a 7/16" wrench, which will take care of most applications. Also the bolt, a 7/16" wrench. When we get to the stack frames, those will also use the same wrench. So minimal tools used with this system, minimal hardware to do that. This bolt will cover probably 95% of all your panel applications. So what we'll first do is put the pin on. This is a very critical part of the panel installation. Once that pin is put in, if the pin is crooked, it will telegraph that into the next panel and your panels will not line up properly. So a visual check as you put this in, make sure that it protrudes straight perpendicular from the panel frame. The best way to put this in, again, I mentioned a 7/16" wrench. You can do it with a hand wrench to put it in. You could also do this with a deep socket to put this in from the side with a 7/16. What I will tell you is when you're doing it with the socket with the gun today with the 18 and 19 and 20 volt drivers are kind of an overkill for the office furniture. Make sure you dial down when you do something like this. If you turn it in all the way, and it must be in all the way, if you slightly strip it by a half a turn, you're going to be fine. But if you put your gun on 100 setting and put this thing in, you're going to spin it too far. We don't want to do that. So control how you're putting these in with a gun if you're not doing it by hand. But again, the important thing is it coming out straight? Take the time to look at it now rather than have to deal with it once the panels are together. So that would be step one. This will match the next panel frame with a hole to go over that pin to keep us vertically aligned. Or in this case where we're starting with a 2, 3, or 4-way, the corner block also has the hole in which would slip over that alignment pin. Now again, this will keep me vertically aligned from panel to panel, and also when it gets to the point where I will put my cosmetic trim on here, it will nest off this top piece and adjust down. So this also sets the height of my pin. How do we connect this to the panel frame? You're going to take this carriage bolt, go from the inside of the panel frame. We have these T-knockouts that go all the way through panel frames. It's also on my corner block. So once we put that on, we will now come through the back thing, feed this backwards into that, and then simply tighten it on the panel frame. It does have a nut and washer on the inside. It is a 7/16, and you will snug that down. Again, the strength of this, do you need to tighten this and over tighten this? No. This should be in hand tight, and then give it a couple cranks with your hand wrench, or again, the driver setting. But again, keep in mind what you're doing with this driver. If you use too much excessive torque on this, you'll start to bend frames and do things like that. So again, kind of control when you're putting these panels together. You don't want this to affect reconfigurations and work later down the line by over tightening these things. So we'll put those in, tighten them. Now what I'm going to do, depending on the height of the panel, is I'm going to put more connectors in. So what I'm going to do is go to the bottom here and put 2 more in. I will put one again in the bottom hole. Remember, top hole, bottom hole. And on the taller panels, I will go one directly above this knockout. That's the black knockout on the paper behind us. That is where power and communications come through. So on this height panel, yes, they are a little close, but that's the appropriate number you need. And again, they will spread out as the panels get taller. The same process, you want to make sure you have the right orientation of this block. This block is going to go on the top here, and I'll put it here and here. This is where a critical alignment places it. When I put on a finish post, it's going to bottom out in this one to give me my nice look on the top. If by chance I install these and they are too high, that will bring my trim up in a bad look at the top here. So again, that's the thing. While you're setting panels, you want to make sure these are in the right spot. Naturally, when you try and tighten this bolt, it wants to walk a little bit on you, and you don't want that to happen. So what we usually use is a 1/4-inch wrench. Now this is actually from one of our other panel systems, but it's a common tool installers have. Again, we'll get the right orientation. I'm going to take that, slide it through here into my panel frame. Now I know that's not going to move on me. This is the best thing until you get comfortable with this system to make sure your panels are aligned properly. I'll put that on. We'll tighten it with our wrench. I'm going to pull this out. Now I know that's in the proper spot, and I know later when I do my panel trim, I'm not going to have to spend time loosening things, going back, tweaking things. So it is a learning process. This is the fastest way to do this. Again, we'll take this, go to the bottom hole, stick it in the bottom hole, take the bolt again from the inside, make sure it goes into the corner block, and it is a carriage bolt, so it has the square fitment. Lock that. I'll take my wrench. Again, keep one of these in your pocket, a 7/16 inch speed wrench. You may decide for speed to do some with the driver, but you're going to run into applications where you don't physically have room for the driver. It's nice to be able to take this out of your pocket and tighten things up, or have to adjust if you need. So that is probably the most important tool you need with a panel system. Again, tighten and snug, but do not over tight. Now I'm in a position to come out on 90-degree increments with a 2, with 3, or 4-way condition. Once we have our corner blocks onto the first panel, we're going to complete the intersection by putting on the next panel. Again, this can go for 2, 3, and 4 ways. We'll put our alignment pin in, make sure it's in all the way, make sure that it is straight, bring it into place, let that go over the next corner block. We'll take the same carriage bolt, put it through, lock it in place. Once that's on, again, continue setting panels. You can come off here with a 2, 3, or 4-way again if you want to put the pin in and come off here, or save that for a cosmetic trim and do an inline connection. Inline connection is done the same way. Again, your pin is in either side of the panel, whatever works best for you. Put in place. Now with the same carriage bolt, which will fit through either way, we'll put this through. Best practice is the nut end of it have towards the end of the run. Why? If you want to reconfigure and take one panel down, you can minimize your work by loosening it from one side, pulling it out, pulling the panel away rather than having to remove tiles just to get at the nut. So best practice is keep the nut out towards the end of the run, and every intersection try and be consistent of what way you put the bolts in so you're not switching back and forth. So those will head and go through the first frame, both walls, and then actually into the first wall of the next frame and tighten down. It's not going to go all the way through. It's only going to the first wall. And so we'll put that through. Glass applications. When using a fabric glass combination, and obviously here we have a couple different heights, which is feasible with an end of run cover. What we're going to do is the same type of connection. Now the glass, we do have a little different scenario. One side we do have the T-pockets that the bolt will go into and drop down to tighten, but of course with the glass it's a one-way condition. I can't come through this way obviously due to the glass, but through the fabric panel into this is the way to do it. Now again, at the top of the connection I want an alignment pin. It goes on either side, so I went ahead and put it in here. And then what we'll do is we'll bring that in, line it up with the next hole. Again, the carriage bolt. We'll take that through in the top, bottom, and middle, all 3 intersections. And tighten that down, and we'll do the remaining 2 bolts. When you get to the glass, a glass combination, I'm not going to do that here. What do you do since you can't get a bolt through either direction? One side of every glass panel will come with a U-channel that will allow 2 glass panels to hook together. It comes with the panel. If you don't need it, take the 3 screws out, remove it, and don't use it. Maybe keep it for future reconfigurations. So specification of that is not needed. It will come with every glass panel. Once your frame installation is done, you do have the ability to stack on top of this. We do have open frames, 16 inches high, that can go too high, bolted together. This will allow you to achieve some different heights. Most of the installations will probably be done without these, since you can get the segmented look with a single frame. Whether it's 1 tile, 2, 3, 4, you can get a different look with an individual frame. But if you do need the ability to add on, go ahead and take this frame. We've got an alignment pin already put in. Remember, the top connection will always have an alignment pin, even if you're adding up. First thing we need to do is remove the top trim to allow us to put the frame on. The top trim will then move up to the top of the add-on frame. What we'll do is remove the nuts, take off the top trim. There are foam spacers on every frame that we will go ahead and remove. Now we'll take the top frame. Again, there is an up and a down. You put the pin in the top. Make sure your pockets here for the bolts, the T-pockets, the narrow point is always down, just like on the panel frame. Then what you'll do is take this stack frame, put it right on top. It's basically just a miniature panel frame. Now you're going to go ahead, again with the same connection bolt, and go through one frame into the next frame and tighten that down. Same 7/16" wrench, the same process. Don't over tighten, but make sure it's snug. Keep in mind you may be putting components on this if you're using it. Again, the first level is load bearing. So we'll get those down. We'll go ahead and take our wrench. Once the first add-on is installed, next I'm going to make a connection here in a 90-degree on an intersection with another add-on, which will happen to be glass. So what we're going to do is take another corner block. This is our universal corner block, again to go all directions or possibly hold our cosmetic trim. We've got our pin in. We'll put the corner block on. We'll take our bolt once again, just like we did down below. Take that, tighten it up finger tight. Get it nice and snug. Now the next one, we'll take the nuts off again, loosen up the top trim. Once again, take our spacers off. Those aren't needed for the add-ons. We'll take our add-on. This one happens to be glass. Some differences in glass, whether it's a glass frame or a glass stack frame. No slots for components. We do have these slots for components integrated in on the other panel frames. No components on glass, whether it's a full frame or an add-on. You can stack them one high. They come in 16 inches. Glass also comes in 24 inches for a different look. We'll take that, put our pin on. We'll bring that into play. So we've got things aligned. You want to make sure your frame is aligned on the frame below it so things are nice and square. Again, the carriage bolt will go up through the frame into the glass panel. We'll do that on two sides. Once the bottom ones are in and tight, make sure my frame is square with the bottom one. We'll take a shorter carriage bolt, which comes with glass frames, connect it through here, tighten it, again with a 7/16" wrench. That will complete my top frame. Electrical components. The nice part of the composed panel frame is the electrical will ship in place from manufacturing. Haworth will have these things pre-installed at belt line, at the bottom of the panel. And again, we referenced earlier, but if you desire power at below the work surface or even at a standing height, there are retrofit kits that you can put into the field. Those will not come factory installed, but they're as easy as the installer putting them in to achieve some different power at some different heights. To get the power into the system, a couple different ways to do that. We do have top feeds that we do with all our systems. We also have the base feed or the floor feed, which will bring power from the floor, a wall, a column, something like that to bring it into the panel system. And we also have some concealed varieties also. This is the more common one. What it would typically do is back feed through your raceway cover and be installed, and then your raceway cover goes up. That's the proper way to do it and the easy way to do it. If you are in the situation where this is already in the floor, they wired it up in advance, or it's a reconfiguration where you're not going to disconnect it, this will not fit through the raceway cover. The best way to address that is make a cut in your raceway cover to allow the conduit to fit through it. And with every base feed will come a cosmetic cover that will go over that piece that you cut out to conceal that, and that will be in charcoal only. So whether it's wired in advance or wired at the time of installation, you'll be able to work with the cover to make this work. That's the way to get the power into the system. To run it from panel to panel horizontally or vertically, you're going to use flex connectors. These are similar to some of our other product lines, except for the same one as from our premise line. This is the one that will go from the base panel to the next base panel in this condition. Now the nice thing with our other systems of the design of the flex connectors, the way the hots and neutrals are designed, there is no way to do it wrong or to goof up this power. There's no handedness to it. I like to stick with the stickers and the verbiage to keep everything up in case you need to read that, but it will physically work in either direction. That will do my inline connections. It will also do my 90-degree connections. That will come with the panel. When you have power at belt line, you will also get a flex connector that comes with that. It's a little bit shorter because that's not going to wrap around. What that is going to do is actually go through the panel and be concealed by the panel frame and snap into place into the next one. Again, comes with the panel, does not need to be specified separately. If you choose to do an application where power at the belt line wraps around a corner, that's the only place you're going to specify a connector which is a little bit longer that will go through this panel frame, connect, and then also through the other panel frame and connect into this one. This one doesn't have power right now, but that's the only place you really have to separately specify a flex connector for that application. When you want to run power vertically, it's the use of a power harness. We have power harnesses from base to belt line. We also have a short one from base to below and a longer one from base to standing height power. These will just snap into the PDA, the power disassembly modules on the end on the flex connector spot. There is holes dropping through every vertical alignment, every part of the panel frame, even the top of the frame to go up to the ceiling, and also even in the bottom raceway cover to access power beneath the floor or cables beneath the floor to bring them right into the system rather than trying to get creative on how to bring them into the system. The only instructions you need on this is notice the conduit goes up at an angle. You're going to want them facing each other. So the top one will start to point down, the bottom one will start to point up. If you try and install them upside down, you will find yourself a couple inches short. So there is an up and down to that. What you're going to do is go ahead and just feed it through these holes and pop it into place. Make sure it snaps. Whenever you're putting any electrical components together, it's good to support the back of the PDA while you push and lock these into place so you don't do any damage to the PDA. Again, the same thing with the base feeds and any of the flex connectors. Always support the PDA as you do this. That will run your circuitry from up to down or down to up. Keep in mind, the base can be 3-circuit, which is this, or the 6-circuit, which we have available. The upper and the other modules will be 3-circuit only. Keep in mind that even with the 6-circuit, it's all the same flex connectors and the same base feeds and things like that. It's pretty simplistic as far as components go. The way to access the power once you have it within the system would be through the receptacle. This is the standard receptacle for all of Compose, whether it's top, bottom, base power, no matter where you're using it on here. This is the triplex receptacle. And of course, it has the same features which all of our electrical components do, is we can switch from 1 to 3, the different circuits by moving the back, which will move your hot and neutral, and you can see which one on the front. So when you're controlling your power and want to know which circuit it's on, you can look at the front to see that. And again, that will snap to all of these with locking positions to grab onto the PDA to hold it in place. There is only one other type of outlet for this system, and that's the same looking one, only with the orange delta, the isolated ground system, which can be accessed from any circuit on here. So that's how we're going to access them. So we've got the base feeds to bring it into the system, we've got the flex connectors to bring it through the system, and then we've got the receptacles to access and get power out of the system. Next, we're going to install the panel trim, which consists of the top trim, corner trim, and end of run trim. We're going to start with the top trim. It's the same top trim whether it's glass or a regular fabric frame. It's just different installation techniques. One, we're going to actually take the same carriage bolts and slide them through here and put it down and bolt it to the frame. On the glass, again, since we can't put bolts through glass, we're going to utilize plastic clips on top of the glass panels and a snap fit. So we will use the same cap, but it just does install a little bit differently. Now on the panel frame, we'll take the same one, and I went ahead and slid the bolts in. And then what we're going to do is set those through the frame, put it on the top of the frame. We're going to center this on the frame to make sure it lines up. And then we're going to take the 2 nuts that we removed earlier, the flange nuts, and we'll tighten those. Now when you are installing these, we would prefer that you leave these bolts hand tight. If you try and over tighten these, you will deform the top trim itself. It is aluminum, and it will tend to bow or dip or kind of dish on the top. So we're going to get those hand tight, and then the most I would do is, again, take my hand wrench here and maybe go a quarter of a turn. And that's sufficient. It's not going to go anywhere, and I'm not going to get any deformation on the top trim by doing that. So remember, hand tight on that. Next, once our top trim is on, we're going to finish this off on the end profile with an end of run. It is one piece. It's always one piece, no matter what you do on the panel frame or with add-ons. It's always one piece, as opposed to some of the other stackable systems. The only thing we really need to make this work is an alignment piece for the top to engage in the end of the run to keep it from dropping down too far. So first of all, we'll take that piece, put it in, and now we'll line up our end of run and nest it down into the panel. Before we add the corner piece, or if it's a 180 condition, before we add that panel trim, there's one step we have to do yet, and that's remove these spacers. These spacers come factory installed all the way around in every corner block. We're going to go ahead and set all our panels. Now when it comes time to put the trim on, it will not fit on with those spacers. That is designed to keep it in line with the panel. So in order to do this, I'm going to have to remove these plastic strips, and that's simply done by popping them out of place. Now that will gain me that dimension so that the panel trim will not sit proud of the panel. When you get to the two-way or three-way conditions, follow the instructions on which ones to remove, which is all visible spacer pieces, but then the light blocks are going to go in to prevent you from seeing the shiny aluminum corner blocks. So what we're going to do on a two-way is put them on three sides. The fourth side doesn't need it. The cover itself will be the light block. So I've got two already in. You can press fit them in or even slide them in, but we'll put it in slightly above the corner block, about 1/8 of an inch. You are going to want to do these before your tiles get on, so you can get your fingers in to do this. So it's a lot easier to do this after your panels are set, but prior to tile installation. So we'll go ahead and tap this one in, and this is the last one before our corner piece goes on. Okay, now that we have that on, we're going to take our finished post and put it in place. Again, aluminum, top to bottom, no plastic pieces involved, all one color. It's got kind of an I-beam condition here, which is going to lock into these corner blocks. So the small notch will always go to the top. So this is the top. What you'll do is get this on over those corner pieces. And then we'll tap that down into place until we seat it and it's even with the panel frames. So that's locked into place. It's just a gravity fit. When it comes to the top piece, got a square top piece. This is universal for the 2, 3, and 4 ways. It can go on either orientation, and what it's going to do is just lock into that, again, that aluminum corner block. So we'll get this started and push down to finish that off. Once my panel trim is in place, the last step we're going to do is to tile these things up. We're going to get everything on, in and out. It could be different configurations. You could have one piece, two on the inside. That's where you're going to have to rely on your documentation on your print to let you know what size tiles, also if there's any color variation of red, blue, gray, or what colors you're going. So you will look at the print for that, but the frame will allow you to do multiple things. The aligner light blocks, which come installed in the panel, they are where our tiles will end up. So there's no gaskets tuck or anything like that. This will be our aligner light block. It will also have some standoff, so as pads get pushed or leaned against, they're not going to go through. They're going to be something to stand off against. Now we do have our slotted standards on the end of each frame for our components and our cantilevers and things like that. What's next to it are these square holes that are just designed to accept tiles. So the tiles will pop into those holes and end up on these. If by chance you need to move an aligner light block, it's all on slot. Pull it to one side, drop it down, put it in the next one. There's no mechanical fasteners or anything for that. Right now they're put in place with a black tape on it, and that is changing in the near future to have a little metal twist lock. So again, it will be no mechanical fasteners, but it will be kind of locked in place. You'll bend a piece of metal out of the way to remove it, bend it back to lock it back in place. So that's what all these slots are for. It is set up on 8-inch increments, so you could do a 16 to 16 to 8 or an 8, 16, 16, or basically any 8-inch combination you wanted to The most you're going to have to do is move the aligner light block to match up with the seam. So to put these on, we've got a pad here. There is a top and bottom. We've got our stickers on here, so at least you know what kind of fabric, when they were made, and all that information. The top clips, the gold, are on the top, and on the bottom we have a silver clip that's shaped a little bit differently. So there is a top and bottom. So these bottom legs are going to install first, and then swing in the top and pop it into place. So what we're going to do, and I'll put this one on the back side in a minute, we'll go ahead and lock in the bottom legs into the frame. We'll drop those in place. You want to make sure they're seated all the way. If the tile is not dropped down all the way, it won't go in properly. So line it up with the holes, and it's a matter of press fit after that to pop it into place. We'll do the other side here. Again, a little bit larger tile, but it's the same type of configuration. Top and bottom, some of the larger ones have center struts. We'll put it into the bottom holes in the panel frame. Again, make sure gravity's working with us and it's down in place. We'll pop that in. This one's calling for another one. Keep in mind this could also be done all with one piece and you wouldn't know that it's a stack frame. That will pop in place to finish that off. So the only thing we have left to do is the raceway cover. We're going to go with a non-powered. It's smooth. There's no access for power receptacles. You could have non on one side, powered on the other side, and specify it that way to keep hallways clean and not have all the knockouts and not look as busy. So again, a lot of options on what type of look you want. There is a top and bottom. Smooth. The top has slots cut in. What those will do is match up with clips that are on the panel to capture them. So the installation of it will be, take the bottom, rest it in that metal pan, assuming now's the time I want to do my covers, my communications are all in and everything's ready to be buttoned up. What we'll do is line that up and you swing that into shape and press those into those clips. To remove them, again, it's just the opposite. Swing it down, lift, and set aside. So that's the non-powered version. On the other side here, we have a powered version. Now the 2-footer is a little unique. Utilities will always look the same on Compose, whether it's on the raceway cover or up in a tile. You're going to have a large knockout for that triplex receptacle that we covered. You're going to have a smaller knockout for data communication blank. You'll typically have 2 of these, except the rule of that is on the 2-footer, there's just not enough space to do that, so we're only going to use one, and it's going to be offset to the left. So the 2-footer is a little unique as far as the covers go. The installation of it is the same. So to put this one in, again, remember the bottom, the top. The top has the slots. We'll get this one set in the plastic tray and pop that into place. If you were using a receptacle, of course, you would put the receptacle in prior to the cover. And now it's a matter of popping in blanks for the receptacle, blanks for data, again, unless you need a data jack in here. So that's the powered versus non-powered covers. We'll go ahead now and continue putting the rest of the tiles in. We have a little different scenario here. What we're going to do is not utilize a raceway cover. There is power here, but I've deemed that I don't need to access it here, so we're going to run a tile all the way to the floor to make it look nice and clean. Now, having a tile to the floor, you can still use power. You can just not access it. You cannot put any receptacles and get to them. So it's a little bit different installation. When you order a frame without a cover, we assume you're going to go tile to the ground. We're going to give you these clips in the panel hardware box. So what they will do is keep this plane on plane with the lower leg. If you can see this, the lower leg indents in why we need to run cables and power past that, so it's a little bit skinnier. We don't want the bottom of the tile loose. So we're going to take these clips, put them into the slots that are provided for them. Probably the big thing here is make sure they're down all the way. If they are not down all the way, my tile will sit high. And if my tile sits high, it's going to throw everything off going up. So we're going to want to make sure those are in all the way. Now I've got a nice even plane here. So this is basically mimicking one of these other holes. Now I'm going to take my same style of tile with the same bottom clips, but I will install the bottom clips into those slots. And now I will bring it up like that to give you a little bit different look. You're still going to see the metal reveal of the metal pan, but you're not going to have the raceway cover. So this is the look you have here. Now the only other odd tile would be the utility tile. When I want to access my utilities, you can order a utility tile with faceplates factory installed. They're going to have openings for receptacles and opening for data, receptacles, data. Wherever you have a receptacle, even on the bottom, you will have data below it access to keep a consistent look. It's the same style tile, only has this put in it. It comes in 16 inches high or 24 inches high, up to 32 inches high. If you want to go higher than that with a one-piece tile and you want to access electrical, that's not a standard catalog item. What you're going to do is order these plastic bezels with a cardboard template and your razor knife and just cut a square hole in here, pop that in, put the clips on. So it's very easy to retrofit a typical tile, fabric acoustical, to a utility tile by use of this port kit. So it's going to install the same way. We've got our electrical in, we've got our receptacles in. The cable people have come and run what cables they have to run. I'm going to take the same type of tile. We're going to put that in like this. We're going to pop that in place. Now I should have a receptacle here, but I can always put a blank in here and here. You will get blanks for all of these in case you choose not to use receptacles. So it's, again, a standard tile application. It just has the port cut in it for receptacles. This is the more common, the fabric acoustical tile. We also have wood tiles, two different types of wood. We have the vertical cathedrals, the high-end wood, and we also have a horizontal grain, a double-cut wood to do here. We also have slat tiles, a slat wall to accept some of our jump stuff tools and toys and organizers. The only difference on that is since it is load-bearing tiles, which will have paper units on it, it has to be kind of locked in place. What we do it is with kind of a half-moon hook like our cantilevers, put that in, let it drop down so that it can't come off the panel. You will want to install the tool slat walls first because you have to go up a little bit and drop back down. So get those out of the way. The fabrics, the woods, the laminates, the marker board ones can all go in any orientation that you deem necessary. The slat one is the only one you want to get out of the way first. So we went ahead and we'll finish off putting these on, and then we'll get to our components. Next, we're going to talk about work surfaces and work surface supports. We have standard work surface as kind of our adaptable / universal work surface that will go on this system along with all our other systems. The unique thing will be the cantilevers. You would order a surface, then order what brackets you need to support it out of the composed catalog. There's left and right cantilevers. This is a composed cantilever. Some features is it comes in black or black. It has a rectangular knockout here. Some of our other systems also have that. So to distinguish this for a composed, we did stamp a C in the back of the bracket. So this will be a composed only cantilever. So there's left and rights of cantilevers. There's also left and rights of corner brackets. This is a corner / side bracket. It will also have the C in it. Basically, these are our only two brackets for the composed system. The anti-dislodgement device is on here, so when I put it in the panel, there's no way this can come off unless I bring it all the way up to this position for safety. So we'll take our tape measure, put this into roughly 28 inches to top to give me a nice 29 1/4, somewhere in there for the top of your work surface. If you're going to use the corner bracket on a different end or even on the back of a corner work surface, it's, again, left or right. You specify which one you need. Put that into place, put it down. We do send a locking clip with that. What it is a piece of metal that will go through into the panel slots and take this and go into these holes on the bracket to lock that in place so it can't move. Now it's a matter of laying the surface on, putting in your screws. They are pre-drilled. The back and the third hole are pre-drilled on all of our work surfaces, so if you stay in the pre-drilled holes, your office will be square. If you start to deviate and are not hitting the holes, step back and take a look because something's going out of skew here if you're not hitting the pre-drilled holes. So remember, left and right cantilevers, left and right corner brackets. Another common way to support a work surface and also give our panel some support, some floor support for overheads and things like that, are with use of end panels. There's some different styles. This is a common end panel. It's the end panel we use in all of our panel systems. It's 1.5 inches thick with laminate on all edges. The only difference we do is throw in different hardware kits, whether it's composed or one of our other systems. There are different depths because we do have, again, the same surface, but we have 3 different edges available on the work surface. Some of those take one that's a little bit shorter or deeper than the others. So 3 different depths, one standard style of work surface, and it's a matter of putting this in place, again, putting the work surfaces on and supporting it up with screws. The last way to really do this, and it's common with this, again, a floor-supported system, is to use my lower storage for storage and for supporting the system and the work surfaces. So you will see your pedestals going to the floor with this system, no suspended pedestals, no suspended files. And so, again, those are an adaptable story so that all of our lower storage here will work with all our systems. So there are no composed specific storage units. It's going to be any Haworth storage unit will be under here and pre-drilled to work with this system.